Hi everyone. Welcome to the next in the series of our discussions looking at the outlook for 2025. I'm joined by Ludwig who is the CEO of CourtCorrect. Looking forward to hearing a lot more around the impact of AI and the look forward into 2025 and beyond. Hi, Ludwig.
Hi, Don. Nice to see you.
Um, yeah, and you. Thanks for joining. Would you like to give a quick intro to yourself and CourtCorrect and the work that you're doing?
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Ludwig Bull. I'm the CEO and founder of CourtCorrect. CourtCorrect is an AI startup based in London, and we specialize in the resolution of complaints, particularly in regulated industries like financial services. And our mission really is to make the resolution of consumer disputes, of which there are many millions, if not tens of millions a year in the UK alone, effective, fair, and also to help businesses learn from those problems so that they can become better at what they do.
Brilliant. Thank you. So yes, in terms of 2025 and your outlook for, the complaints world and the world of AI, where do you see the biggest focus areas in the industry?
So, I mean, I think in 2025, we will see a lot more businesses adopt AI as part of their BAU processes. That certainly is a trend that, started, back even when AI was first kind of introduced into the business mainstream, even in the late 90s and the early 2000s. And I think it's important to note we've always had AI solutions, AI technologies. Well, not always, but the concept is as old as the 1950s. It's pretty much as old as the computer itself. But of course, only really through the internet and the digitization of businesses in sort of the 90s, 80s, 90s onwards, some of these applications that are actually AI applications have been able to find their way into, routine business processes. And even before the advent of large language models like GPT-3 and GPT-4, which really have put the topic of AI in the forefront of people's minds, we've had AI applications in businesses for decades, whether that's machine translation or, foreign exchange trading algorithms or a host of other different tools that have always found their way into different business use cases. So I think really what we're going to see more in 2025 is that trend, which happened to start specifically for large language models just around the time that GPT-3 was launched and made publicly available. That will continue. So I think a lot of businesses are still in the very early stages of adopting AI in their BAU process. Certainly, quite a few case studies maybe have been completed by some businesses, and maybe they've played a bit with some demos. But in terms of really taking a tool from an initial pilot to sort of full scale rollout, used for every single part of that process for the business, that's something that few businesses have done. Obviously, more and more are doing it. We're going to see a lot more of it in 2025. And of course, the businesses that adopted first, they are going to get exponentially further ahead from the rest because every single step that you take puts you not one step ahead, but two steps ahead.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good reason to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's certainly some of our conversations that we've had at Simplify Consulting around, moving from, being aware of AI, investigating it into now firming up where the use cases are, where the benefits are going to be driven from, and actually looking towards implementation. Is that something that you're seeing more of as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the use cases for like most of the use cases are probably kind of obvious. Like it's not really that difficult to actually identify use cases for, generative AI technologies in particular. It's hard to come up with like creative, disruptive use cases, but yeah, these tools can write really, really well. So obviously they can be used for coding, for writing of any kind, for data analysis, because ultimately, even a SQL query is just language. So I think the identifying the use cases is not that difficult. What's probably more difficult is first of all getting the whole organization behind doing it. Like with most big organizations, that takes a lot of assurance, takes a lot of stakeholders, and I think there in particular, when we started first going out to the market, we really saw that a lot of our customers just didn't have the expertise or even the vocabulary to assess and understand these technologies. Because they just basically came to the public's attention like a couple months ago, at least at that time. So we've certainly seen our role as well as to sort of helping clients navigate that and share the expertise, because we obviously have it, right? We have like AI developers that build large language models even from scratch. So, really well placed to actually explain it on it, because we understand it on a technical level, and we've got lots of legal expertise in the company as well. But mostly because we actually understand it on the fundamental technical level, we can explain it because we've read like all of the code, so we really see behind it. So we've always seen our role as explaining and educating a bit. But certainly we've seen that, organizations are starting to catch up on that. That expertise is starting to develop internally, whether it's from a data security point of view or, data privacy point of view, or just sort of how the technology works. So businesses have made some progress in that. And I think that is also what will drive some of the next wave of adoption, because, businesses will just be in a better position to navigate and understand and deploy these technologies. So I think that's one of the things that is a bit challenging. It's sort of getting the whole organization to buy into it. And the other thing, of course, is going from, oh, this thing can write a letter to, right, this thing can write all our letters in the way that we want all the time, and we know that it's doing that, and users are comfortable with it, and it's successful, and we can push it in the right direction. Because inherently, large language models make a lot of mistakes. They hallucinate, they make stuff up, they don't have a conception of truth. They can be wildly inconsistent. And while the technology has developed a bit in that area, a lot of these problems are kind of inherent to the way that large language models work. However, it doesn't mean you can't eliminate them or even push them to zero. It just means that you have to know how to do that, and you have to monitor it, and you have to have these kind of feedback loops where you perfect the technology. And sort of catch these errors and eliminate them. And that's, I think, where a lot of organizations, have struggled in the past and will probably struggle as well this year, which is why it makes sense to partner with a company that has a sort of very specific application of this technology. Because, in our case with complaints resolution, we've solved all these problems for large language models. So you don't have to solve them, because, we've applied the tech to this problem and we've eliminated those errors. So now you can just use it, which is a much more effective way of deploying this technology than trying to reinvent the wheel yourselves, right? Most companies we work with aren't tech companies, so why should they build this technology themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that maturity and like you said earlier, around getting started and looking at that adoption will then put you further ahead, because you'll be able to learn and develop and expand it more into the business. Um, in terms of adoption, what are some of the biggest challenges? You mentioned things like maturity level and having the right skills and assets within the business to adopt it. Do you find that businesses are able, once you've defined what that use case is and they want to go ahead with CourtCorrect, that they have that kind of change implementation structure in place to adopt AI into their business?
I mean, I think it kind of depends. Um, I mean, like in the end of the day, a, a software product is it's just a tool, right? And it's a tool that either works or it doesn't. And if it's a good tool, it works. It doesn't just work, but it works really well. Um, and if it's also unique, because you have to use that tool, not some. You can't just use another tool, right? So from that perspective, for the people who actually use the software, we've seen great adoption. And by great adoption, I mean like 90% user retention within first like 2 to 3 months, so nearly like full retention of users across client accounts. So, and I think that has to do with the fact that the tool is just a good tool, right? If you give somebody a good tool that solves their problem, and that is probably also a unique tool, like adoption shouldn't be an issue, because it should just work. Adoption usually, I think, becomes problematic when the tool doesn't do what you need it to do, or it fails a certain percent of the time. And again, here, this is where working with us, I think, makes a lot of sense, because we've we make sure that doesn't happen, right? Like you shouldn't have to think about, oh, 10% of the time CourtCorrect is going to fail, and that's just not going to lead to good adoption. Um, I mean, usually I think so. I think if, as long as you've got this match right between the tool and the problem, then the user is just going to use it, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be fine. You don't have to worry about adoption. Um, Obviously, there's a lot of parts of an organization that get very concerned around risk control and managing that process, and how people use the tool, etc. And that's all fine, but that all has to be done before we give them the tool. Like before we give them the tool, somebody has to check out the tool and watch people use it and say, okay, well, that actually works 99.9% of the time. Cool. And then the one time that doesn't work, it's not a big issue. So that kind of stuff has to be done beforehand, because otherwise, if you don't know that, you should roll out the tool anyways, because why would you give people a tool that you haven't checked works? And then the only times when I think there can be problems in adoption is also if like the scope isn't clearly defined. Like, if some people think that it's going to do something that it can't do, or people don't tell us what they need it to do, right? I mean, but yeah, I've never really thought of as adoption. I mean, maybe to an extent, it's a cultural thing, because people are worried about, I think in the abstract, people are worried about technology and AI and robots and so on. But concretely, in a business sense, if I'm doing a job and suddenly somebody gives me, if I have to do something that takes me an hour to do, and suddenly somebody just gives me a button that I can just click that does that like perfectly 99.9% of the time, I'll just click the button. Like, of course, I'll click the button. I'll do something else. I'm not gonna, people who wouldn't do that just, I guess I just don't know anybody who wouldn't do that. So I think adoption is mostly, while there are all these cultural and risk elements, I think they need to be front loaded and managed. But then when it comes to actually adoption, it should just, the product should just speak for itself.
Yeah, sure. Because I think, there is obviously quite a wide variety of interlinked benefits, aren't there, in terms of adoption of AI? And you've mentioned a couple of them. So you've mentioned things like consistency and efficiency and things, but it's all about making sure that you find the mechanism of using AI to do things better, faster, more consistent than people can do, and making sure that the people in the business are supported by AI and have the freedom to do the kind of value add things that people can do much better than AI.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that makes sense, right? Like on an abstract level, that's right. But I think I would always think of like a lot of the AI technology in that kind of broad sense as raw material. Like a GPT-4 is kind of like raw material. It's it's a useful building block, but that's great. But you can't just look at GPT-4 and say, oh, great, let's just give everybody this and make them use it everywhere and have fun. Like that might lead to certain outcomes, but that's definitely not going to lead to a 90% retention across your business, because it's just overkill. Like it's not, you can't use it to do like everything. You can use it to do some things extremely well, probably even a growing area of things extremely well. And if you build good things on top of it, you can probably get it to do almost everything extremely well. But it's about navigating that space between the raw material, or sort of the foundational technology, and actually, here's a business process, right? Like this is what people here do every day, and bridging that gap. That's mostly a technical challenge, I would say. It's mostly a technical challenge, which is why companies like CourtCorrect exist, to bridge that, to solve that technical challenge. Once a technical challenge is solved, then everything else, cultural, risk control, cybersecurity, like all of those things should either already be solved within the tool, or something that's very easy to verify or very easy to kind of implement. And then people get the polished version, and then it just does what it says on the tin. And I think from a software adoption point of view and a buying experience, that's great, because that's how you buy things that are good and use them well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. So I'm just conscious of time, because we're almost out of it, but I just wanted to ask kind of a final question around, CourtCorrect and where you're seeing the development. Where's your areas of focus in 2025? What are you looking forward to implementing this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got a very exciting product roadmap. I think really some items on there which are, not just useful, but also actually intellectually very interesting and inspiring. I mean, one of the things we think a lot about at CourtCorrect is, what's fair, what's reasonable, what's just. How do you resolve complaints in a way that actually creates fairness? So it's I'm not going to go into all the details there because it's it's our secret sauce, but that's an area we're really interested in. I mean, we mostly most important thing for us is to continue collaborating really closely with our clients, and also to take up their very good impulses around what's next, but also to kind of guide it in the right direction. Because obviously, we have some really strong technical expertise and market expertise. So a lot of it will be helping our clients continue to automate across the complaints journey, whether that's complaints ingestion and structuring or generating letters, root cause analysis, all the kind of typical things. So a lot of it will be that. But I think increasingly we're going to see the benefits of aggregate level analysis as well. So once you're running that, the data that you're getting out of it, what does it enable you to do and learn and say? So yeah, we're going to be focused, I think, because also the market still is evolving, right? So we're going to be focused on helping everybody automate as much as possible, and then increasingly look at the more refined things that you can do on the back of that.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And yeah, I obviously, we've worked together on a couple of initiatives recently, and it's always fascinating to hear from you and the work that you're doing at CourtCorrect. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me, and that was a fantastic discussion. So thank you very much, Ludwig. And
Sure. Thanks for having me, Don.
yeah, and we look forward to speaking again and continuing the conversation because it is fascinating.
Likewise. Sounds great.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much.
Cheers.